Hi, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and on this podcast, we're going to talk about some deep stuff. I'm here to tell you that you're amazing, and often, the only person who can't see that is you. No matter who you are, what you do, or where you're from, there's greatness in you. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and welcome to the Transformation Starts Today podcast, where I interview leaders, champions, and high performers from all walks of life as they share their story, the lessons they've learned along the way, and empowering perspectives to help you create an extraordinary life without regret starting today. Today we have with us Mia Khalil. Mia Khalil grew up in Beirut, Lebanon, where she spent 12 years amidst the Lebanese Civil War. At the age of 18, Mia immigrated to Montreal, Canada, where she discovered the taste of freedom and peace and learned how to process childhood memories and trauma through the power of creative writing. After overcoming debilitating chronic pain through the mind-body approach, Mia became passionate about helping others achieve similar results. She founded her holistic coaching practice to help people reclaim their power, overcome their limitations, eliminate pain, and live a life of freedom, joy, health, and well-being. Her mission, create a free world. Mia, it's so wonderful to have you with us on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here.
Yeah, you have a glowing smile that anyone who's on video will be able to enjoy.
How
And
can I not? I mean, this is a sacred space, and I think my whole body is buzzing for it.
thank you for that. And I'm actually going to use that as an opportunity to share for our audience think of it like something to be with today. Mia just said, how could I not be? This is a sacred space. What if you tried on that wherever you are right now listening to this, wherever you're going to be today is a sacred space? Very often we will define certain areas as sacred and certain areas as mundane. And it's not a surprise that when you do that, that becomes your experience. So you walk into a place that you've deemed to be sacred or somebody else told you is sacred, and you feel a certain way for it. There's a certain level of reverence that you bring. But another space that you think is more like a commonplace or more like a mundane, like I said, you don't treat it the same way. Your experience is different. But what makes it, let's say, sacred? How you show up and the mindset that you bring. And so, with that in mind, what if you made today more sacred, more holy, whatever word resonates with you, because you have the ability to do that. So, thank you for inspiring that just right off the bat.
Oh my God, your words are just landed here, and I have this big openness to talk a little bit, if you would allow,
Please.
about the sacred space as a segue into perhaps what we are going to talk about. But what can we think about more sacred than this temple that we inhabit,
Yeah.
that this body of ours, that this home for our spirit, soul, whatever you wanna call it. And as you were saying the sacred space, I could feel it in my body. My soul is saying, here I am.
Yeah.
And it is when we are far away from our bodies, when we want to escape our bodies, when we are in resistance to whatever our bodies are going through, that I believe the seed of pain is planted. And so I invite everybody, I join in your invitation actually. And I join in this beautiful invitation. And I also want to add to please tune in with few breaths and feel the sacred space that is your home, that is the home of your soul.
Thank you for that. And I'd love to then guide us through before we dive into some conversation about this. If you're driving, keep your eyes open, but you can still do this. Let's just take three very intentional breaths together. And the way I like to share it with people as an invitation, breathe in through your nose for about 3 seconds, breathe out through your mouth for about six. And so you have to, the exhale is a little bit low, not low, it's like a long exhalation, controlled. It relaxes the system. So we can do it together. We breathe in, Breathe in. And with this next one, as you breathe in, just let your shoulders drop, your jaw relax on the exhale. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you can open them back up when you're ready. And just presencing yourself back into the space wherever you are, ready to receive, ready to enjoy, and ready to learn. And so thank you for that, Mia. That's the first time I've ever opened up a podcast with that. So that's great. And so
That is wonderful.
would love to just have you share for our audience who doesn't know you yet, they haven't connected with you. Can you please share your story, what your life has been up until this point that's led you to where you are now, doing what you do now, and why you do what you do now?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. My story, I want to start with clearly you read that I grew up in Lebanon.
Yeah.
Most of my childhood and teenage was spent in a war zone, which we're gonna probably talk about a little later, contribute to hypersensitize my brain, my nervous system. Um, Due to the level of uncertainty, fear, the level of things that were going on around me that as a child I could not understand, and yet I could very much feel. And so you don't have to grow up in a war zone to have this sense of unsafety or fear and grow up feeling that there are things happening in your body that you cannot really mentally explain as a child. And so it creates a certain resonance within your body for safety. It creates this constant screening for anything that could be perhaps dangerous or painful. And we do as beautiful beings create all those patterns of protection and self-protection and all that. But my story is I did grow up in this uncertainty and this fear and all that. And later on in life, as responsibilities and life became a little tough, I had two children. My marriage wasn't working very well. I was in my late 30s. I started developing chronic pain symptoms, mainly in my lower back, my shoulders, my neck, and it would really travel. So when my neck would feel good, my back wouldn't, or when my back would feel better, my shoulders would start to hurt. And so at some point, this pain became tremendous. It affected my life in such profound ways where um, I slept in pain and I woke up in pain.
Wow.
And the sad thing is that I would wake up every morning and the first thought that would pop into my mind would be, I cannot wait for this day to be over. So waking up to that is not fun. I do not wish it on anyone. So this pain prevented me from being the mom I wanted to be. So it limited what activities I could do with my children. It prevented me from fully participating in my life. Um, it prevented me from committing to things, outings, travels. There was always this thought in the back of my mind, like, what if my back flares up, or what if this happens, or what if that happens? And so with that experience, it created a lot of isolation too. It also created not only isolation from the world, isolation within myself, if that makes sense. I lost connection. I did not want to be in my body. I wanted to be anywhere but in my body. And that isolation at the deep level of I don't want to be me, I don't want to be in my body, in my life, is I think the biggest wound that sufferers from chronic pain go through. And it is so invisible to the world. It is something that is silent and invisible. And as we go through it, people, understandably so, become a little wary and maybe tired of hearing you repeating the same thing. So you silence yourself. You stop even talking about it. You stop sharing. And so your experience becomes that of isolation, even if you are surrounded by people.
Mm.
Uh, it's like stifling. It's
Yeah.
a stifling experience. It's very limiting. There's also shame that goes with it. Shame of my inabilities to be like other people or do things that other people can do. Um, the limitations go on and on and on. And this lasted close to 7 years for me.
Wow.
I did go to, you name the practitioner, I went there. From holistic to traditional medicine. I've done injections in my back. I've done physical therapy, many rounds of it. I've done chiropractic treatment. I've done massage therapy, meditation, hot yoga, swimming. I changed my diet. I became, I adopted a vegan diet almost overnight because I was reading and it said that it lowers inflammation in your body. So I did that. And I want to take a little pause here to say that this was not an aligned choice, right? This was done because of the hope that this would help me heal pain. So when it is not an aligned choice, it created yet another punishing experience where I couldn't enjoy even um, the basic pleasure in life, which is food you like.
Yeah.
So that felt like even um, more punishing of an experience. But I stuck with it, thinking it would make a difference. It didn't. Clearly, it didn't. But yeah, chronic pain set me on a journey of um, really, really experiencing limitation on all levels. Um, and when you seek help, when you go to um, the doctors or the spine specialists or the orthopedists, I did have two shoulder surgeries too. I remember one time the spine surgeon told me, listen, there is hope for you with surgery. We can fuse a few discs, but we want to wait until the pain becomes unbearable. So there is nothing to do. You can't prevent this. What you can do is actually stop doing any high impact exercises. You can stop lifting weights. You can stop even carrying your grocery bags. And I would go as far as saying, don't carry a purse.
Wow.
Can you imagine how limiting this is coming from someone who, and I'm not judging because this new, what I'm going to talk about, is really new research. It's based on really new understanding of the body and pain and all that. It's not like doctors conspire against us. It's not like this at all. Um, but based on what they're trained in and what they know, they want to make the biggest difference. And this is how they know how to make the biggest difference. It is changing now, so that's awesome. So hearing this with your MRI on the display in front of you and looking and seeing all these abnormalities, hearing these words, it created such unsafety.
Yeah.
I was scared to sleep. I bought these wedges to support my body. I was so scared to move, to sleep, to do any damage, any harm to my body, which resulted in more pain.
Yeah.
Because clearly, the more you're avoiding, the more fearful you are, the more the brain is going to start to send danger. It's going to ring the danger alarm system. And the only way that the brain knows how to protect is by sending pain signals to slow you down. And so this happened 7 long years until one day. So this story is not gloom and doom, it's actually a miracle. One day I was on Amazon looking for, Googling actually, books on Amazon about healing back pain. So this is what I typed, healing back pain. And lo and behold, Dr. John Sarno's book, Healing Back Pain, popped up. And I'm like, huh, that's That's interesting. I read a little bit, the intro, as you could do on Amazon, and I'm like, you know what? I don't believe a book can heal all what's going on here, but I'll give it a shot. I started reading on Friday night. By Sunday, I was done. I was done with pain. I hit the gym. I lifted weight. I ran. Um, I came home. I'm gonna have tears because
I already do.
I can never forget this. I came home. I sat down on the couch and I was sobbing. I was sobbing. A few things were going through my mind. The feeling of I cannot believe this reign of pain is over. I cannot believe I'm gonna finally experience a day without being in pain. Number two, I cannot believe what I missed. So the excitement, the celebration, the grief of what was, um, so much compassion for myself um, was bubbling inside of me, making me um, almost transparent. So much was going on inside me that um, I almost felt surreal. I and I believed it. I didn't think once that, oh, maybe this is just today, or maybe this is not true. It wasn't like this at all. There was a deep knowing inside me that I was healed.
Mm.
There was a deep knowledge, a deep it wasn't faith, it wasn't hope. I knew I was healed. And I can't explain that. So people ask me oftentimes, how did you know? I don't know. I just read that book. It resonated with me. It gave me permission to release,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Sometimes Sometimes, yes, the pain carries a lot of messages and a lot of lessons to learn. And it could be a best friend because it could really show you where in your life aspects that have become unsustainable forces you to make those changes.
Yeah.
It kind of says, okay, I let you alone for a long time. You didn't do it. I'm gonna force you. I'm gonna not force you, but I'm gonna nudge you. So it could be that. But I had already been on a journey where I was evolving. So I was evolving, I was making the changes, I was laying down the boundaries, I was freeing myself. I was on a journey of evolution. So this pain was kind of there because I didn't believe it could go. It was as simple as that in my experience. And once I read this book, energetic level, permission level was at 100%. And it dropped.
Yeah.
It just dropped like that. So that is my story. And once I had that, how can I not want to just run outside and share the news that we have hope. There is hope. People don't need to live in pain. This is where the seed of my deep yearning to help, deep longing to make a difference, to make an impact, uh, to tell people you don't need all that darkness in your life. This is where it stemmed from.
So fantastic. I thank you for sharing your story. And it's incredible to have gone through what you've went through for 7 years every day, and then to have that liberation experience after reading and applying what's shared in that book. And, you talked about the permission idea. And so for our listeners, if the cause of pain is mental and emotional, as an example, then if mental and emotional caused it, mental and emotional is what cures it. And so giving the permission instead of the resistance and allowing it to go, like in Mia's example, having, let's say, certain lessons, maybe the pain is there to teach or whatever it might be. Yes, there are situations where the cause of pain is physical. And if the cause of pain is physical, this may not have as profound of an effect. But so often the cause of pain isn't physical. And I know Dr. Sarno talks about how people can say, I've got back pain, or somebody else might say, I've got knee pain. Look, my x-ray proves it. But then
Yes,
you get somebody else who has the same looking x-ray with no pain.
yes, yes,
And so it can't be just that. And it's multi-layered. And so first, just that massive acknowledgement to you for doing all the work that you did in the 7 years. And you got to that point of fully being ready.
yes,
Different mentors of mine that I've learned from over the years have taught me change happens in an instant. It's the process of getting ready for change that can take a long time potentially. And
yes.
so the example I like to think is if the room was dark and you walked up to the light switch and you had your finger on it, but you just hovered there and you say, I really want light. I really want light. Well, until you flip it, it's going to stay dark. Now, you could say, I really want light for 15 years. And then at some point, you flip the switch and the lights turn on. And then I say, how long did it take for the light to turn on once you chose to flip the switch? Like a microsecond. But how
Right.
long did it take you to decide to flip the switch? 15 years.
Yes.
And so it's like, what if change could happen quickly? What if it didn't have to take a long time? And when you hear Mia's story that Friday she starts reading it and Sunday, I love how powerful the statement you used was, I was done with pain.
I was done.
Yeah.
And Jamil, it's beautiful what you said about the switch. In my case, I did not know that there was a switch.
Yeah.
So yes, I was looking everywhere where I knew where to look, but I did not know. So I was groping in the dark. But once this Dr. Sarno said in his book that this is a switch and this could relieve all of this, it took me, I went for it. I'm like, oh my God. But most people don't know. And that is stage number one. Most people don't know that this work applies to them. They're going to say, yes, but I have disc disease. So do I. So it hasn't been announced yet, or it has been, but it hasn't made it mainstream yet, that abnormalities in the spine are like wrinkles. They might be ugly to look at, but they're not painful. So I didn't know that. And once you have a set belief system, it gives a legitimate outlet for anything that's not resolved in your life to attach
Yeah.
to that region. So if in your family someone struggled, for instance, with carpal tunnel, that is a prime site now. That is a prime landscape for emotional things to attach because it has been believed that it's a thing in your family. So people think it's genetic. It's not. It's just that it has been believed for years that this causes pain, this is legitimate, this, right? If
Yeah.
you've had a father who wore neck braces because he had neck pain. I mean, my grandpa used to wear those. I grew up watching this man struggle with neck pain. Clearly, I had neck pain.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a quote I heard from a teacher of mine years ago. Our biography becomes our biology.
Biology,
Yeah.
yes,
And so
yes,
there's a story of this is what I've been through. And like you talked about, rather than being genetic, in a way, it's genealogical. And
yes, yes,
it's people in my world that I grew up around, and there's a certain situation or condition or experience that was created as normal. And, that was similar in my own family. My dad's side of the family, historically, they've had a lot of heart issues. And so one of my cousins, we were both around 30 or maybe 27 or something like that at the time, and we were having a conversation. And he's telling me about his life plan. And he's like, oh yeah, at 27 this is going to happen, 29 this is going to happen, 36 I'll have my first heart attack, 41, and he's telling me about his life. And I said, hold on a second. Are you like scheduling in a heart attack for 10 years from now? And he goes, oh yeah, it's genetic. It's going to happen to all of us. But he said it with such like congruency and certainty. And the thing is, because he has that, there's a certain way he wasn't taking care of himself. He wasn't eating a certain way. He was living in a way that's likely going to promote that outcome as a self-fulfilling prophecy because he's assuming now it's inevitable. So bringing it full circle, just like I started with the sacred space when Mia
Yes.
brought it up, and I said, you could decide that wherever you are is sacred and then act as if it is, and it will be that way for you.
Yes.
In that
Yes.
same way, you can decide that diabetes is inevitable, and then you will live a life more than likely that leads to it.
Yes.
And, so, and then you'll say it's because it was genetic, but it's not, that's not why.
Your body will work so hard to make what you believe reality
That's a perfect way of putting it. Yeah.
and in a neutral way,
Yeah.
loves you unconditionally. So if your belief is that you are going to have a heart attack at age 40, your body is going to work so hard, even against its own healing abilities, to make that happen for you, because that's how it is.
Yeah, if our listeners have heard of these two, let's say, words, one of them is the placebo, and the other one is the nocebo. And
Yes.
often people haven't heard of the second one. So when we think of the placebo, commonly think of it like the saline, the salt water, the sugar pill. It's basically you're going to do some type of experiment. One person or one group is going to get what you call the experimental drug, let's say, which you're wanting to test. And the other one gets the placebo, which theoretically is inert. It doesn't do anything. And the idea would be that, well, nothing should happen to them. And the people who got the experimental thing, something good or bad should happen to them. But it doesn't happen that way. What happens is that depending on the trial, 30 to 80% of the time, the placebo group gets as good or better of a result as the experimental group. And then you say, hold on, but I thought they didn't get anything, but they weren't told that they got the placebo. They may believe that they got the real thing. And so by believing they got the real thing, their mind creates like the internal pharmacy, it creates the chemistry necessary to create the result. And there's even placebo surgeries that have been done
Yes.
where
Yes.
two groups were told they needed a total knee replacement. One of them got
Yes.
it. The second one just got a surgery where they opened them up, made a little scar, and closed it. And then at that point, fast forward a year or so, I believe it was, they followed up with the people, and the ones who got what they called the sham surgery had just as good of a result as the people who had the knee surgery.
Yes.
And then there's the nocebo, which is kind of what we're talking about in a way. The nocebo is, let's say a patient goes to the hospital and they get told by their doctor that they have a certain condition and they've got 5 months to live. If they believe their doctor, more than likely they will only have around 5 months
True.
because
Even if it's a misdiagnosis.
exactly. And so that nocebo effect is where are you buying into the negative side of the equation and just taking it as fact. And so earlier when you said, I just knew,
Yes.
in that same way, there are people who say, I just know, but they use it against themselves because I just know I have this problem.
Yes.
I just
Yes.
know that it cannot
Yes.
be fixed.
Right.
And it's not a surprise that that becomes their reality.
That
And
is true.
and I just come from a space that in my training as a naturopathic doctor, there was something that we learned in school, and I forgot who exactly told me this, but the idea was there are no incurable diseases, but there are incurable patients. And what that meant was there are people that because they've been struggling for so long, maybe they're a lot older, their energy, their vitality may be low enough that stimulating the body into a healing state, they might not be able to mount that. And so there's always hope, but there are people that it might be, it's been going on so long and they've kind of been deteriorated so much that it may be less than what we can do. But that's rarer. And the thing is also, though, that there is somebody in the world historically who has been cured of any condition you can imagine. I know myself of people, I've worked with people energetically with energy healing who have been told that they have a certain condition, they've got 6 weeks or 6 months or whatever, and there's no cure to this. And we cured it in 1 or 2 sessions. And the thing was that that wasn't it. So the last point before I throw it back to you is I just come from a space that when somebody tells you this is not curable or this cannot be fixed, the underlying statement that isn't normally spoken is within the confines of my paradigm. So, given my training, given what I have been exposed to, given what I've seen in my own practice, or given what I know in the literature, this is how you work with this, and this is what can be done, and this is what can't be done. And there's a lot of beauty to that because there's a collective, let's say, consciousness as it relates to the experience of all these different practitioners. And it's good to know that. But there's people who get second, third, fourth, and fifth opinions. And it's not until the fourth or fifth opinion that they get told, well, try this. And that thing changes everything and it works. And then you go, why didn't the first three opinions tell me that? Because they didn't know. And so it's not saying that don't listen to your doctor, but it is saying coming from a space of no one person knows everything. And if you come from that space of believing that there's always something that can be done to improve your situation. Now, that doesn't mean cure, could mean that, but at least it could mean there's always something that could be done that could make your situation better to some degree. If you look for that, you're more likely to find it. But if you assume it's not there and you don't look, then life stays the same or it gets worse.
Yes, yes. I have two things that come up from what you just said.
Please.
First, you see when someone has a condition or struggle, the body is struggling with a condition right now. What usually people do is they go and they look for groups of sufferers. And it becomes a brainstorm of whose situation is worse. What and it becomes also like an old wives' tales. I tried this, try that. I tried this, try that. It's like a competition. Who's gonna win the most painful or most, it's the doom and gloom online. And rather than going and finding these groups, I always tell people, if you want to go and find a group, if you want to go and read, please find a success story of your whatever you're going through. Go look for someone who had the same thing and healed and read that rather than going to those support group, the migraine group. They sit there and they think they're supporting each other. But all what they do is reconfirming that this cannot go away, that this is a sentence, that this is so painful. And they find comfort in that. That's one thing. If you want to do that, you can. I highly empower people and encourage people. Go dig for stories for someone who struggled with this for 30 years and healed. That's what you want to look at. Number one. Number two, before you go to get your results from a doctor, empower yourself in your body to have a space where you understand that everything that's going to come out of this person's mouth is that person's experience and belief system.
Yeah.
It's not the truth. So when the spine surgeon told me there is no hope, this will only get worse, I believed it 100%, and it created so much. I was more in pain coming. I remember feeling more pain coming out of his office. My pain spiked. So please empower yourself to A, look in different places, and B, keep that space where your own empowerment, your own hope, spiritual practices or beliefs can play between you and the diagnosis or the prognosis. Don't sign this contract just because someone said so.
Yeah.
Because once you sign it, it becomes it.
That is so powerful. And I hope our listeners really take that in again. Create the separation, like Mia beautifully said. Whatever someone's sharing with me is their opinion. And I remember hearing Tony Robbins say, and because this was his life experience, because he got diagnosed with a brain tumor like when he was 17 or 20 or something, maybe 25 around there. And then they told him basically that his life was going to be over because he had to do the surgery and he was going to basically have no energy. And he never did the surgery. He had like seven different opinions, eventually found somebody who told him A, what he wanted to hear, but B, what actually worked for him. And now fast forward 40 years or 50 years, he still has that brain tumor and he's completely fine. And so with that in mind, though, it's that idea that whatever somebody's telling me, I'm going to create the separation to say, they're giving me one perspective. And by definition, perspective is like one facet. It's one way of looking at it. It's
Yes.
not the whole thing.
Yes.
And so it's like, all right, thank you for giving me that perspective. I appreciate that. You give me to the best of your knowledge, what happens if I do this? What happens if I don't do it? Like the informed consent, all that. But it's ultimately up to empowering ourselves to say, now, given that it's my life, what do I want to do? And what's my timeline here? It might be an emergency, and they could be right. And this might be the best thing for me to do right now. And sometimes you do have some time. And then maybe there's some other opinions you can get from people who have a different paradigm. So, for example, if you go to a pain management specialist, and you go to five of them, but if they're all trained in the same stuff, you're going to get
Yes.
five very similar opinions, even though you got five different opinions. But if you go to five people that help people get out of pain, but one of them is like a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, one of them is a conventionally trained pain management doctor, one of them is like a chiropractor, one of them does something else, one of them does regenerative injections, whatever it might be. Now you're getting a really wide variety of you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then given all of that, you can make the best decision based on what, is not relevant, but what most relates to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ultimately, ultimately, there is a part of you that knows. Everybody knows that. There is this gut feeling. Ultimately, if you sit in silence, a part of you is going, the whisper, you can hear it because that part is not going to scream loud. What screams loud is fear-based thoughts, is fear-based actions.
Yeah.
Those are so loud, they're like drums. The knowing, the deep knowing whispers. And if you disconnect from the drumming of the fear, you can hear it. It's within every single human. I would like to empower us all as humans. We have that. We have that. We give it away. We give that power away because the drumming of fear is creating a disempowered state where, I mean, if you don't have safety within your body, you're really easy to manipulate.
You made a comment earlier. I didn't understand it, but I felt it. It goes with what you just said in my interpretation. We often come from a space, at least in more of like a Western mindset, we're like very in our head, not very in our bodies. And
Yes,
so something doesn't make sense logically, or we just we don't know why. How did this happen? But our body is feeling whatever it's feeling. And like a book like you read, there's some people who would hear that story and they would need to understand exactly how it happened before they give permission for it to work. And there's other people that'll say, I don't really care how it happens. I just want it to happen. And they might have it in 2 days or they
right.
might have it immediately. And it's not a good, bad, right, wrong. It's just coming from a space of recognize your life experiences are going to be based on your definitions. How do you
Yes,
define your reality? How do you define, for example, like what is it, what runs in the family and what doesn't? What's my life going to look like and what it isn't? This doctor said this, that means like how do you define things? That will become real for you. And given that in our conversation, would love to just get your perspective on what does pain represent? Because some people think about pain and they think about it as just a negative thing or a nuance or like, why do I have to be experiencing this? And they see zero good in it. Other people have a very different perspective. And so, what does pain represent to you?
so pain is a very dense experience.
Yeah.
Pain is dense because it needs to pull your attention, and it does. If your attention needs to be pulled and nothing is working, pain will do it.
Mm.
Pain is this one universal density in a human body that will get that job done. Now, what is pain? Pain is a protector. And I know people will resist that. I'm gonna give you a short story, and maybe after that, it could be also a segue into how do you know that this pain, could be this or that. I'll talk into this in a second. So, how is pain a protector? Pain wants you to change your life to live a full life. Meaning, if I'm having boundary issues, if everybody steps over me, if I'm a people pleaser, if I'm a perfectionist, if I'm denying my own experience constantly to get rewarded by how people look at me or to please people, At some point, pain could be a good strategy to get me out of that. How, you might ask, how is pain a strategy to get me out of that? Pain will be in the way if you can't say no. So let's say you can't say no to going to parties. Well, you'll have a migraine.
Hmm.
You won't go to the party. Let's say you're a big people pleaser and there are things that you keep doing that fundamentally you don't want to do. Pain will also help you by taking you out of this. There is another format. I worked with someone who their basic fundamental belief system was that the world is unsafe. I'm only safe when I'm alone. And so this person developed this program at a very young age. It was very unsafe in her household growing up as a child. And her only moments of safety were when she would be alone in her room or outside in the woods with her dog. Otherwise, it was extremely unsafe. So fast forward, she's now at a dating age. Every time she would try to engage with a partner, she would have pain that would prevent her from having this relationship. She couldn't go to dates, she couldn't be a partner, she couldn't do things with the partner. So that pain, and when she would break up, she would feel better. Fast forward, she wanted to go to the gym. Now the pain became louder and louder. At a certain point, she developed full-blown fibromyalgia. She couldn't leave her bed. She could not leave her bed. She couldn't go to doctor's appointments. She couldn't even speak on the phone. Just the fact of holding the phone to her, this was back in the day, would create pain for her. And this lasted for decades, for decades. So I started working with her. And when we discovered what the pain was serving, it was serving a purpose to protection. So if you believe that the world is dangerous and you're only safe alone, I'm gonna work hard to make that happen for you. And this is how it did. She couldn't leave her bed. It made it happen. The body made it happen for her. Once we work on the seed, we release that seed, we change the belief system. And usually people will tell you, I don't believe that. Let us see at a subconscious level what you believe. So let us dig. We have beautiful techniques now to be able to uncover those roots, those subconscious roots. And we call it subconscious because clearly you're not conscious of it. Clearly. So when I ask people, you might have some repressed anger or rage. I'm not an angry person. Clearly, I said repressed. Clearly, if you were in touch with it, it would not be repressed in your body. So people don't understand that they have belief systems and the body is serving those belief systems.
Yeah.
This is the basic. I'm gonna tell you a story that will probably bring another story, will bring meaning to this. So like clockwork, my back would wake me up around 4 in the morning, would seize up. I can't sleep. So beyond 4, I have to stand, I have to leave my bed, I have to walk around, it would loosen up, and then I could come back and have a couple more hours sleep. Clockwork, every day, nagging. I wake up, I'm in pain. I'm like, oh, can this please be done? So one time I gathered my courage and I'm like, I'm gonna go visit family. I live on Long Island. My family's in Montreal. So I said, I'm gonna take my 2 young kids and I'm gonna go visit my mom and my siblings. My mom said, I'll give you my room. I'll help you with the kids. Don't worry, come. And when you're in chronic pain, you don't wanna pack luggage, you don't wanna travel, you don't wanna go with kids. Everything becomes a production. I went. I remember waking up, it was 9 o'clock. I'm sleeping in her bed. I look at the watch, I'm like, this is incredible. The hell happened? Where is my back pain? First thought, what is this mattress she has? I need to buy it. Linear thought, right? I did look, and when I came, so the whole week I didn't have no back pain, no back pain. I come back, first thing on top of my list is buy this bed, and I did. I bought the bed. It didn't work.
Mm.
It didn't work. I could not connect that all of a sudden, after years of struggling alone with kids, finally I have help. I have love. I feel taken care of. I have community. No back pain. Huh? I couldn't connect those dots. So I want to talk to people. How do you know if this, because my spine is my spine, right? I do have the disease, the stenosis, the impingement. If you go on my website, you will see it's a whole array of things. It's beautiful. It's, and now it's like over a decade older, so it's probably better in terms of things that's going on there. But I want to empower people to watch for inconsistencies. If you have a broken bone, it is going to hurt consistently in the same manner. If you want to walk on a broken bone, the pain is consistent. It's not, if I go to my mom, it's less. If I go on vacation, it's less. If I don't have stresses at work, it's less. So please look for inconsistencies. Look for when it peaks. Look for when it's not there. If it travels, if let's say you have a massage and your body feels good, all of a sudden you have a headache. This is what we call symptom imperative. If you need to be in pain at the end of the day, something needs to hurt, this is for you. This work is for you. And I want to say pain is real. So I don't want people to think, oh, she thinks it's in my head. It's not real. No, pain is real. Pain is dense. I know pain. I'm not saying it's in your head, but it's the cause. It's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
The
That's,
cause is not what you think it is.
yeah. I often come from a similar space that whatever symptoms that you're experiencing, we often think the symptom is the problem. The symptom is a superficial layer, but it's more of an alarm system. It's an
Yes.
adaptation by the body because something else went wrong. And then
Yes.
the symptom is, so for example, I had a doctor, a colleague of mine, Dr. Hal Blattman, on this podcast many episodes ago, and we talked about a lot about pain. And he talked about how the source of pain is almost never where you feel it.
Yes. That's true.
So wherever we're feeling the pain, it's like, oh, my head hurts. It must be up there when it's probably like in your neck or it's in the traps or it's somewhere else or it's something that you ate. And so when we come from that space of realizing I've got some symptoms, now, am I ignoring the symptoms? Am I ignoring the alarm by just taking, so for example, maybe I have a cough. So really simply, we might say, all right, my body potentially is trying to get rid of something.
True.
Now, if I take a cough suppressant to stop the cough, the surface level looks better. I'm not coughing
True.
anymore. I sound better
True.
but if my body was trying to expel something, I'm keeping it in there. So then the body is going to say, okay, I guess we can't get it out with a cough. Maybe we got to find another way to get this out. So maybe they go, I got it. We'll use the skin. And now you start getting a rash or you start getting, and you go, oh my God, what's this? So then you put on some steroid cream to suppress.
Absolutely.
And then the body goes, all right, well, we can't use the skin. We can't use the lungs. We're going to use like the GI. And then you get like some type of weird, bowel movement kind of thing going on. But the body's always trying to help, and the body is intelligent, and the body is doing what its best that it knows how to do to adapt to a far from ideal environment. Because all of us nowadays, our environment, almost no matter where we live on the planet, there's so much more environmental toxicities and exposures that we have now that our grandparents' generation and beyond just didn't have to deal with. And so we're all in a way swimming in some toxic, water. And at the same time, there's so much we can do because our body is so resilient to make it where we can handle being in there while still maintaining health and vitality. But we have to listen. So when you have like the old metaphor of the car has the check engine light and maybe it's pinging nonstop and it's making that noise, and you either go, oh, I hope nothing's wrong with my engine, and you go check it out. Or you say, what is that noise? It's so annoying. And then you get your scissors and you cut the wire.
Yes.
Oh, and now the speaker doesn't work anymore. And then you go, that's so much better. But then you keep driving and then the car breaks down X amount of miles down the road and there's smoke coming out of the engine. And then you go, like, that's just my luck, as if like
Yes.
I didn't have a part in that. You know?
Yes. I love this analogy. I absolutely love this analogy. If you constantly tackle the symptoms, it is going to go deeper and deeper and deeper in your body. You have to listen. And we grew up in this culture with the Motrin and the Tylenol and the cold medicine. And as soon as you start to feel something, load your system with this. It's insane the amount of suppressant that we give out. Suppressant. If you're feeling emotional pain, distract yourself, go to the movies, call friends, go do this, do that, suppressant. We are in a culture of suppressants. This is what we push out, this is what we value, this is what we teach. And it is insane how much we counteract the beauty and the intelligence of this body, that if it's not healing, it's because you're interfering. It does not know how to not heal.
Yeah, it's like when we think about there are certain times like virtually anything, everything has its place. And so suppression has its place. If someone's going into anaphylactic shock, suppress, 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 suppress. We got to save this person. But if somebody has like a fever, it depends. The vast
Right,
majority of the time, the fever is going to be an aid to the healing process, and your body's doing it because it's intelligent. But there
right.
are times where a fever is so so high that it can be dangerous, and suppressing it would be a good idea. But like you said, I grew up in a very similar culture where the mindset, oh, you're sick, the temperature is slightly elevated, get on that Tylenol or the Advil or the Motrin or whatever someone's taken for whatever they've got going on, but that is not getting to the root cause of whatever is going on. And like you talked about, I love when you brought up the inconsistencies because
Yes,
like, and the broken bone example is perfect. If you break your femur and your leg, putting weight on it hurts always.
all the time.
But
Yes,
if you go, oh yeah, I went for a hike earlier and it was completely fine, and I was alone, or I was with community, or whatever the
right.
opposite of what your normal is, and then you go, well, maybe there's more psychological and emotional components here that I'm aware of.
Yes,
And I think part of it is just being open. Like you mentioned, most of us don't grow up thinking this way. And so can we be open to the possibility that there's more going on than just physical? And
yes,
if we can be open to that, we start to find new opportunities. And I would posit this, that I believe things happen for a reason. People come together for a reason. We don't always know what that reason is in the moment, but you're listening to this podcast for a reason. And there's potentially some things being shared here that is either things that you've never heard of before, just hearing me a story of 7 years in that chronic pain and then gone in 2 days. Did you know that was possible? Like, did you know that could happen for somebody? And then you hear about it. I'm my personal coach for my business. That same book, Healing Back Pain, turned his whole life around. And so many people, whether it's that book or something else, there's help out there. And at least you could say there's hope. Like life doesn't have to be exactly the way that it's been up until this point. And especially if you say, I've tried everything, and to be as compassionate as possible, I can only imagine the feeling of I've tried everything because you really believe it. And you've
yes,
spent years, like you said, working with every
yes,
practitioner you know of. And it's just like I said earlier, excuse me, a medical practitioner might say, this is the way it is. But they don't say, because they're not even thinking to say it, from my paradigm. In that same way, when you say, I've tried everything, what you're not saying is that I am aware of.
yes,
But
yes,
there's so much more out there that any one of us is not aware of.
yes,
So what if we were to
yes,
say, if, for example, there is a video that I saw years ago that was so inspiring to me on my energy healing journey. And there was a hospital in China, but this hospital predominantly used traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, the botanical medicine, the herbs, and energy work. And there was a woman there, and this woman had these three practitioners around her. Now, this woman had a bladder tumor, and there was ultrasound technician or some, I don't know what her title was, but she was doing an ultrasound. And so she had a machine with a display and she showed like the live feed video. Here's the tumor. You could see it right there. Took a screenshot of it. Then she had a split screen. So on the left, there was the screenshot of the tumor. You see it right there on the bladder wall. And then on the right, it was a live feed. So you see the tumor in real time. Then these three energy workers had their hands maybe like 3, 4 inches above her bladder, and they were each tuning to the space of she's already healed. You
Yes.
talked about earlier, I just knew.
Yes.
They were in that space, and in less than 3 minutes, like 2 minutes, 42 seconds or something, you're watching the tumor get smaller, 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 and then it just disappears. And I showed that to an uncle of mine who's a urologist, sees tumors like that all the time. And he's watching this with his mouth open, just like I have no idea what to say to this. Like, how is that happening? And it's because, like you said, it's not their fault. It's like we only know what we're trained in. We only know what we've been exposed to. And so I share that from a space of there's things that I grew up in a very conventional minded from like a medicine and science perspective family. And
Yes.
things that I do now, I would have thought were like quackery when I was a little kid based on what I was told by other people. And then
Absolutely.
once I experienced it for myself and once I actually learned the science of how it works, people started experiencing these kind of miracles that happened in that video in my own practice. And I sit there and I say, this is incredible. And I want more people to know about this. And so for our listeners, if you can allow your, let's say, the borders of your perception of what is possible and isn't possible to expand,
Yes.
it's incredible what you become willing to try. And the thing is, I just saw I was doing some, at the time of this recording, we're in December and or we're in November. And every year, I have to do my continuing medical education credits to keep my medical license. And so I'm going through some online, what do you call them? Conferences. And so one of the physicians was talking about there was this research that was done in Japan, and they showed that if you went to get acupuncture by a traditionally trained acupuncturist who does traditional Chinese medicine in that paradigm, which is very different than the conventional Western paradigm, you had a positive effect 85, 80-ish percent of the time, 80 to 85% of the time. But if you went to a conventional medical doctor and or conventional healthcare practitioner who also did acupuncture, but their mindset was like these 3 points are good for back pain, you only had a positive result around 20% of the time. And then they go, well, why is that? It's acupuncture. Because the traditional trained person, there's so much more involved in the mindset and the thought process of why you're doing what you're doing than just like, this is the drug for this, or this is the three, acupuncture points for that. And so part of my training as a naturopathic doctor, if you have 15 people coming in and they all have the same diagnoses, you might give each one of them either a slightly different or very different treatment plan, depending on the constitution of the person,
That's
depending on
perfect.
how the person's showing up. It's individualized care. It's not a one size fits all. Here's 1,000 pills. These 1,000 people have the same thing, one pill per person. It doesn't work that way the vast majority of the time. It does sometimes, and when it does, beautiful. But it doesn't always work like that. And if we have a system set up like that, it's going to fail more often than not, which is why at the time of this recording, the United States is the sickest country in the world, to the best of my knowledge. And we lead in so many like chronic illnesses. And you sit there and you go, why? Chronic conditions happen when you mismanage acute conditions.
I agree. I agree. And when you also mismanage your inner landscape,
Absolutely.
when you mismanage your inner landscape. And I would like to also put out there, choose your practitioner. The attitude, the belief system. If your practitioner, you can sense they believe you can heal, work with them. Work with someone who has this deep within them, who can look at you and say, I know I can help you. I know you're healed already.
Yeah.
Don't go with, I'm not saying don't check credentials. I'm not saying overlook, do your research clearly, but you have to choose someone who you can sense Believe in your results. That creates your results.
Yeah. So
That,
much of the healing process has to do with the relationship between the
yes,
patient, the client, and the practitioner. And so if you go to work with somebody like Mia saying, who deep down doesn't believe you can be helped because they're so entrenched in the
yes,
story of, in my experience, or at least in the experience of my colleagues, it's a really, really grim outcome.
yes,
The challenge is they're going to give you the treatment that all the other people who had a grim outcome had. And so you're probably going to be one of those people. And you might be the exception, but more likely than not, you're going to end up having that kind of outcome if you follow that methodology of treatment. But if you say, what if there's another approach here? Like going back to the acupuncture story I shared. If it's just needles and you put them in a certain point and that's it, then why is there almost like a 60, 50 to 60% difference
exactly,
in positive
exactly,
outcome in the traditional trained person versus the guy or girl who just knows the points? To
exactly.
just the point. There's more to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And
There's always more to it.
yeah, always. And so with that in mind, I think this would be a perfect time to ask this. Can you speak to the importance of being ready to heal?
Yes. So being ready to heal is not necessarily, so I don't want to disrespect anyone. So an energetic permission to heal has nothing to do with the person saying I want to heal, because everybody wants to heal.
Yeah,
So it doesn't mean that the person is choosing to suffer, because that is not true.
yeah,
Not one person will choose to suffer. So the permission to heal goes beyond things that we can discuss or say. It is at a subconscious belief system level. So clearly, I was ready to heal since day one. I wanted to heal. Everybody does. So I don't want anyone who's listening to say, I didn't choose this. I don't want this. What is she saying? What I'm saying is, be open to examine your belief systems. Be open to change your mind. Be open to experience your energy, your own energy field. And for this to happen, you need to sit in silence. Um, you need to open up the connection between you and what you believe in as a higher energy, higher frequency. So it could be religion, it could be your spiritual practice, it could be your higher self, it could be the universe. We're not here just in this body. There is so much more than we see. And yes, this body is in its experience wants to heal, clearly. You have to open up. You have to have this energetic permission to heal that is different from I want to heal. It's different from the I, it's different from the ego. Maybe questioning what is it that I changed in my life based on this pain? How did this pain help me understand things that I need to change? Rather than hating it, resenting it, be frustrated by it, which is normal. It's normal. I'm not saying love being in pain. It's not what I'm saying.
yeah,
Being open to energetically understand, how did this pain limit me and why? What are certain messages here?
mm,
What can I change? What is it unsustainable in my life? What was unsustainable in my life was to say, I'm a strong woman. I don't need anyone. I can do it on my own. I can raise my kids. I don't need support. That was the story.
yeah,
So, yes, I wanted to heal, clearly, but I wasn't open. I was not open to reconsider my belief systems.
yeah,
When I went to my mother, it was a beautiful, beautiful, like if my body could speak, it would have said, hello,
yeah,
hello. I'm still a strong woman. I still would like to depend on myself, but I'm open to receiving now. I'm open for partnership.
yeah,
I'm open to connect to community. So the old paradigm that was I'm a strong woman. I can do it on my own. I don't need support. I don't need help. And refusing and closing the energy of receiving, my body was aching because it was not sustainable. So please be open to receiving energy messages. Where are you putting yourself in a cell, in a prison? Where? Which prison are you in that you don't realize that you're in? This will open the door. So my energetic permission was open because I was already open to changing my life.
Yeah.
I was already open to, I already believed I deserved a good partnership. I deserved love in my life. I deserved support.
Yeah.
And so when I was ready, I think the book showed up.
I
Nothing is,
take that completely.
nothing is a coincidence. Nothing. Self-love, it starts there. So I thought I was loving myself by saying I don't depend on anyone, I only depend on myself. I was limiting myself.
I'm reminded of a, short story. It's not a, I don't believe it's a real story, but the message is very powerful. There's a guy walking down the street on the sidewalk, and he walks by a house, the picket fence, and it has a little porch. And this guy is on a rocking chair in the front, and there's a dog next to him, and the dog is just wailing. And the guy says, "Excuse me, sir, is your dog okay?" And the guy looks at his dog wailing, and he looks back at the guy, and he goes, "He's sitting on a nail." And the guy goes, "Oh my God, why doesn't he move?" And then the guy in the chair says, "Because it doesn't hurt bad enough yet." And the thing is, like you said, it's not a conscious thing. It's not everybody wants to heal. Nobody wants to be in pain.
Yes,
But the idea is that if you're in a situation that if I say, for example, I am terrified to be in this area. If I'm really terrified to be in this area and there's zero benefit to me being here, I'm getting out of here as fast as possible.
exactly.
If I say I'm terrified to be in this area, but then I stay for a long period of time, that only happens, and you're not normally conscious of this, but that only happens if there's some benefit that you derive from being there. And so, for example, that somebody might be in a relationship and it might be abusive and there might be all these reasons to leave,
Right,
to stay. And they have
right,
an underlying story, like you were talking about, that in their mind, it's more painful to leave
right,
is to stay, or somebody
right.
have a health condition going on. So maybe you have pain, but maybe you feel very alone. And maybe your pain, you go to one of those groups like you talked about, and maybe there's a sense of community. Pain gives me connection. Pain gives me family. Pain gives me,
Right,
if you take my pain away, I'm going to lose that. And they're
right.
not consciously thinking this. But the idea is that in that moment, the pain, in a way, is giving you what you've wanted your whole life. In that case,
Yeah,
sense, connection and community and love. And so you would be resistant, not consciously, but you'd be resistant to letting it go. So
yes,
to work with people, one of the first questions I always ask from a healing perspective is, are you ready to let this go? And
yes,
if the answer is no, then it's not the right time for us to do this work because it's not going to work.
right, exactly.
Yeah. But if you're actually ready and you say, you know what, I've been with this. How does keeping this in my life help me in any way? In psychological terms, they call it secondary gain. What
Yes,
could be the gain in my life?
yes,
The result of keeping this thing that on the surface seems like a problem. But if you can actually get to a point of saying, there is zero benefit for me to have this anymore, then you play with that. Okay, what would it mean if I let this go? What would change in my life if I let this go? How would my
yes,
relationships be impacted if I let this go? What would be added, let's say, or subtracted from my life if I let this go? And then be with that and say, am I okay with all that?
yes.
The answer is yes. At that point, you're probably ready to let this go. And then you say, it's amazing that it can go that quickly. And that would be
Oh my God, yes,
talked about.
yes. How safe, I'm gonna add safety. How safe is it?
That's a perfect one. Yeah.
Or how safe am I if I didn't struggle with pain? Would I be able to put down boundaries? Would I be able to say no just because I don't feel like it? Would I be able, sometimes pain keep you in a relationship. I can't break up with my partner because I'm in pain. Who else is gonna deal with me? So
Exactly.
the pain is helping you Stay because you feel you're fearful of leaving. So it is serving a purpose. It is always serving a purpose.
Yeah.
When you start to open up and say, where am I limiting myself? Where in my life I'm limiting myself? You start to get answers. And please stop thinking your body's punishing you. Please
Yeah.
stop thinking that
Yeah.
it's a form of cruelty, punishment. It's some kind of a karma. It's what have I done to deserve this? All this is not productive and it's not true.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a few things that, if I may shift the topic a bit, there was a few things that stood out to me in your bio that I really wanted to hear more about that I think could be very valuable to our listeners. And the first one was when you first immigrated to Canada, you said you discovered a taste of freedom and peace. Given where you came from and what was going on there, and then given what it was like when you moved over here, what was that like for you?
Jamil, I could not describe the first time I left the apartment I was in, and it hit me. Oh my God, I know I'm gonna come back home.
Wow.
It hit me. And I'm like, wow, there's nothing to fear because it became such a second nature. Every time you leave, it's second nature to think, I hope nothing will happen. I hope, they won't close roads, bombings won't happen, explosions, whatever. It became second nature because I was conditioned in this for many, many years. So I left the apartment and it hit me. Oh my God, I know I'm gonna come back home. It was a realization moment. The second realization moment, I also left to go take the subway, and I heard a big truck braking, and it activated my nervous system, and I realized it was just a truck. And I also realized how sensitized I was because you don't know when it's your life, you don't know. The third thing, how it was for me is the first 24th of June. It's Quebec Day. It's Saint Jean Baptiste. And there was a lot of fireworks. I was petrified because growing up, we didn't have those fireworks. We had bigger ones. I was petrified for a few minutes. My nervous system just went off. And it took me a while to realize this is not the war, this is safety. The little things that people take for granted, um, the little things, I started to see greatness and gratitude and feel how it feels like to be safe. I
Hmm.
didn't know. So please take a second, take a moment and feel how it feels like to be safe. It's a beautiful thing. It's such a profound thing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's such an immensely powerful story, Mia. And I hope that our listeners, wherever you're listening in the world, hopefully you're not experiencing what Mia was experiencing prior to coming to Canada. And even if you are, can you look for the moments
Yes,
of gratitude? Could you look for the
yes,
moments of grounding your perspective in what you have? Like just that line that you shared, you walked outside and you said, I know I'm gonna come home.
yes,
That is so powerful. And that's something that I think most people, if they've never grown up in an environment or been in an environment like you have been, that is almost an assumption. Like
yes,
they don't necessarily give any weight to in a positive sense that I'm
true,
coming home.
true.
And some people don't even like home. So it's like they don't want to go home. But it's like coming from that space though of can you ground yourself in the perspective of what's already in your world, that there's places in the world that would die to have what
Yes.
it is that you're having right now. And I just come from that space that your life is somebody's dream right now.
Oh my God, yes.
And that doesn't downplay any personal problems or challenges that you're experiencing. It's not meant to do any of that. But it is meant to just ground you in a perspective that, yes, I can have all these challenges and problems, and my world can be collapsing in all these ways. And I'm still all right, in a lot of ways. My life is still somebody's dream in the sense that it could be so much worse than it is right now. And you might be able to say, well, it could be so much better too. Fair. And where do you build from? Do you
Yes,
build from the deficiency of
yes,
fear and my life is not what I want it to be, which is hard to do that? Or can you build from a grounded perspective of my life is already blessed in so many ways, and I'm going to actively work towards getting to
absolutely.
be.
Absolutely. I think starting from a space of gratitude and reverence for life will take us so high, will take us higher than we could ever imagine in our mental capacity we could go. So just start from that space. It's available to all.
Yeah. You also mentioned that there was a process of creative writing that you did. It was
Yes.
really useful and would love to hear. Can you share the impact that had and how our listeners can begin applying that if you think that would be valuable for them?
Creative writing helped me express. So I come from a culture where women are not necessarily, and young people, even if you're a young man, your voice is kind of stifled a little bit because you're not allowed to express what doesn't rhyme with the paradigm, the culture, what's expected. I also grew up in a very religious household. I went to religious school. So my voice and my expression were always, I felt a prisoner. I felt that I could not express. So went, when I landed in Montreal, and there were other problems that I had to face, mainly financial, some serious financial struggles. I started to write for myself. And through this writing, I felt freedom, a space of freedom where I could be anywhere, anyone, in any situation I could. It was a space of creation, and it was a space of rewriting some of the old experiences that I lived. Now we know that it's a technique that is used. Back then, I did not know that rewriting memories actually shifts and create a new life for you. So this was something that I just naturally came to me. I always loved to write, always. But it came naturally as I started to write in my deepest, darkest moments where I felt very low, very sad, very limited, where I was yearning for things that I didn't even know how to name. I was missing home without really it being home. There was a lot of parts of me that were aching. And by doing this, it helped me overcome so much. It empowered me. I created sort of my own reality. I felt that I was contributing. And people, you don't need to write. You could be a musician, you could be a singer, you could be a painter, you could be, I'm sorry, a baker. You could be you could be anything. You could be an athlete, you could be anything. Just connect to the spirit of inspiration within you, and don't do it just to fit a frame, to sell, to, yeah, you can do that, but save space for your soul to expand. um, the usage of words for me has always been something that connected me to something higher. And I use words, as you can, if you can notice the way I speak, also I speak in metaphors. I speak in ways that, in a sense, connect me. I feel connected, but you don't need, it doesn't need to be words. It could be anything. It could be literally anything. So please use your inner powers, use your gifts, your talents, your skills, and expand beyond the framework and dare to experiment with it. It'll give you wings. It'll give you freedom to overcome.
That's fantastic. I love it. It's also really cool too from a just writing perspective. You mentioned earlier expression. And
Yes,
so if we've been suppressing, if there's a
yes,
lot of, let's say, mental chatter going on where there's a lot of unexpressed, let's say, resentments or grievances or something like that, just being able to write it, get it out of your head, and then depending on the rituals, you can like burn the letters, all these things, but getting it out of your head and getting it onto paper, that migraine, if it was associated to that, that pain, if it was associated to that,
True,
could lessen or go away because it finally had an outlet.
true.
And so that's available too. And so thank you for sharing what you shared. And the purpose of my work, the purpose of this podcast is to help people create an extraordinary life without regret. If you were sharing with somebody how to do that, what would you encourage them to do?
Without regret, without regret.
An
I love
extraordinary
that.
life without regret.
So, embracing everything you do and you've done as as a learning platform, I think is powerful. When you look back and you think to yourself, I could have done better, I should have done better, I all those things. If you could, just like an alchemist, transform this into um, a melting pot of learning, so a canvas, every single color that you regret, put it on there as a color on this canvas to say, what can I create with that? How can I transform that?
Hmm.
So you can create from your life, from the deepest, darkest, most painful experiences, the most amazing um, artwork that inspires your next movement into life, that inspires your future. Um,
Yeah. I
so no
so
regrets. Yeah, let's drop it.
yeah, I so love that visual because I'm imagining, let's say you're looking at a painting and it's just magnificent in every way and the colors are extraordinary and there's colors there that you see it and you go, I've never seen a color like that before. What is that? And then the person says, oh, that one came from this like really dark space or this really horrendous experience that I had, but I took something from it and it made
Yes.
me stronger, wiser, whatever, more competent, capable, and now I have this available to me to draw,
Yes.
literally and metaphorically, to draw from and to draw
Yes.
with. And so
Yes.
now you've got this beautiful, let's say, human experience. It's almost like I remember hearing people talk about, you think of a movie or a fiction story that has, or just a story rather, where the character goes through the hero's journey. And it's like this stereotypical, not stereotypical, it's like this societal, let's say human societal, like throughout history, it's kind of the journey where you start in a certain place, you meet certain people, you face the adversity, you almost like die or get destroyed, but you overcome, and then you come back down and you start learning things and you bring it back to where you came from and you share that, and then through story and stuff like that. And so the hero or the heroine went out and they had this beautiful,
Yes.
experience, let's say, that could have been challenging in all these ways. But in the context of the story, they weren't the hero before the journey started.
That's right.
So they were just the average person.
That's
And
right.
they went through the journey and they went through the horrible experiences using like more like, let's say, societal like reference points. I could say like a Star Wars or Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something. Frodo had to get that ring to the mountain and Harry Potter had to fight Voldemort and Luke had to go after the Emperor and Darth Vader and all these people. And there's injury and loss of life,
Yes.
things that happen, but you see them at the end of the movie or the end of the story, and you see who they've become as a result of what they've been through.
Yes.
Either inspires others to step into more, or they save the world as a result of doing that. And it's incredible to me to think about a life where you never went through anything would be considered boring. A life that,
It's not a life.
yeah, where your
How
whole,
do you call that a life? Dive into the darkest colors. Dive into the blacks and the grays and the deep purples, and don't be scared of this. From the trauma of being in a war zone, I learned how to laugh from the bottom of my soul. I learned how to cry. I learned how to embrace life. I learned the value of fun. I learned the value of connections and survival. I learned the beauty of a moment of peace. I learned the power of a hug when you're scared. I mean, I could go on and on telling you from this dark background, the lights and the stars and the dimensions that open to me. So please don't be bitter. Please don't regret. Please look into the beauty of every experience. Don't be scared to dive in and know that life is here for you, not against you,
You
in
are,
all its forms.
yeah, you're extraordinary, Mia.
Thank you so much.
And I hope that our listeners can receive the gift that you share by just embodying what's possible when you pull such magic out of a traumatic experience and experiences, and to realize those lessons as a result of being through such hardship. It's such a gift that not only you've received and given to yourself, but that you give to others as a possibility that they could step into. And so thank you for that immensely. And as we begin to wrap up, if our conversation was your last opportunity to share the message on your heart with the world, with our listeners, what would you want to make sure you leave them with?
Love yourself, love your body, harness safety within your body. This is your temple. Your body is strong. It's an amazing healing machine. Feel safe within yourself, within your body, and you can conquer the world.
That was perfect. That was so good. I love that. I love that. And so, how can our listeners learn more about you, work with you, find out what you're up to?
They can go on my website. There they can reach out to me. There's all my contact information. I would be more than happy to sit with anyone. We can chat, we can talk, we can discuss options. Yeah, I'm open.
Perfect. I'll have the links to connect with Mia in the show notes. You can click them all there. And if this has been valuable to you, I'd strongly please encourage you to share this with at least one other person. I think we all know at least somebody who's in pain. And this conversation could be the thing that they listen to it on a Friday, and on Sunday they're completely back to normal and they're healed. And you got to help them do that. And so you can literally change somebody's life for the rest of their life by sharing this. And so that and leaving a testimonial, a review, whether it's Amazon, Spotify, YouTube comment, wherever you're checking this out, goes a long way, helps other people find this faster. And so thank you again so much for your presence, your attention, and I definitely never take that lightly. Mia, is there anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Bless you for this beautiful mission of yours. The world needs it. Thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I received that fully. Yeah, as we wrap up, I call this podcast Transformation Starts Today because I have found that most people's favorite day to change their life is tomorrow. And that's why they stay stuck. Using the context of what we discussed today, they're not ready. And so the thing is, though, once you recognize, you know what, I am going to change something, and you think about our conversation that we've had today, and you make a shift in your world based on what you've discovered here or rediscovered here, and your life can change so, so quickly, but it always starts right now. All my love to you and your family. Happy Thanksgiving. Today is Tuesday when we're recording this, and that's on Thursday. So happy Thanksgiving. And if you're already listening to it after, I hope it was wonderful. Wishing you a beautiful and blessed rest of your day, and looking forward to the next time we see each other. Take care. Thank you for being with us today. If this conversation served you, it would mean a lot if you left a review and shared this with anyone who may benefit. An extraordinary life without regret is available to you now. Choose it. It's your time.